I called the work session of the Portsmouth City Council scheduled for today, December the 12th, at 5 p.m. to order. And Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Cherry.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mrs. Lucas Burke. Here. Mr. Moody.
Here.
Mrs. and Mrs. absent. Dr. Whitaker. Mayor Rowe.
Here. And Dr. Patton?
Yes. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council, this evening, Mrs. Grinley Johnson, Deputy Secretary of Transportation for the Commonwealth of Virginia, will present Go Express 64 Express Lanes. VDOT is giving more choices for travelers through the conversion of unutilized HOV lanes to voluntary express lanes. Mrs. Johnson is the recipient of the highest honor bestowed upon her by the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials with the Women Who Move the Nation Award. She is chair of the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials Subcommittee on Civil Rights. Mrs. Johnson was appointed as Virginia's Deputy Secretary of Transportation by Governor Terry McAuliffe in 2014. She previously served as Chief of Administration for the Virginia Department of Transportation, the third largest transportation agency in the nation, where she directed the divisions of communications, civil rights, human resources and training, administrative services, safety, and performance management. Before that, Mrs. Johnson served as the agency's Chief of Equal Business and Employee Opportunity, as well as in some private sector positions as an accountant, financial analyst, and community relations consultant. Members of council, I could spend another 30 minutes sharing all of the accomplishments of Mrs. Johnson. I will stop here. We are honored to have Mrs. Johnson to present this very important project this evening. Mrs. Johnson.
Indeed. We are very honored, Madam Secretary. And on behalf of the City Council and the whole Portsmouth community, thank you for the hard work that you've done for our community and for our Commonwealth, to make it easier for us to get around and travel to where we have to go. And we especially thank you for the hard work that you've done on tolls. And I know that you will talk about that tonight. It's a sensitive issue for both you and for us, but we sincerely appreciate what you've done and in your capacity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's always nice to come home, and I consider this home because I grew up in Chesapeake, Virginia. Mm-hmm. Any of you familiar with Crestwood?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I grew up in Crestwood, and I'm going to tell my age now because I'm pretty proud of it. I was in that last class that graduated from Crestwood High School, and I'm leaving it at that. You figure out the math.
1985.
That's why I like you, man. That is why I like you. But today, I want to talk to you about 64 Express. But then also, I'm going to sneak in another little topic, and I'm going to do that one first. And that's toll relief. And that is a program that I am very proud of. It is the first of its kind in the nation. But it had to be started because of some unfortunate things that happened here. And we all know what that was, the fact that the downtown Midtown Tunnel started tolling before anything had occurred. So we have a program that's called Toll Relief. And it's for citizens of Norfolk and Portsmouth. And the income level is $30,000 or less. And as I said, you have to reside in Norfolk or Portsmouth. You come to a customer service center. You have to apply in person, and you have to apply every year. So you go to a customer service center, which we have here in Portsmouth. And I'm really going to date myself. I cannot think of the name of the mall, but I'm just going to say the Old Tower Mall.
That's right. That's good.
You know what I'm talking about. Okay. But we have a customer service center there, and then we have one in Norfolk on Church Street. But this is a good program, I feel, because a lot of our citizens who make $30,000 or less, this is good for them. And it's based on frequency. After you go through after you've been approved for the program, after you go through the tunnel, 8 times, because it's based on frequency, after the 8th trip, it would retroactively go back to your first trip, and you would get $1 off each toll. So every time you go back and forth, you would get $1. Now, we wished we could do a lot more than that, but ERC gave us $500,000 per year, $5 million per year to do this. And then they came back and gave us an additional $500,000. So we, at the last year, started March. It goes from March 1st through February 28th. And what we project that we will spend is about $505,000. We're pushing it. But we hope to keep moving. And if we get too many participants in, we're going to modify it, because we're going to try not to deny anybody who has a $30,000 income and they live in Norfolk and Portsmouth. Now, right now, one of the questions that your city manager asked me, first off, is how many folks from Portsmouth was taking advantage of this? There are 2,094 participants. Of the 2,094, 607, 29% is Norfolk, and 71%, 1,487 are Portsmouth residents. So to me, I am very pleased with this program. Of course, we would love to be able to do more. We would love to be able to add more money to increase the benefit, because yes, we do know the tolls go up. But currently, with the resources that we have now, and I can't stress this anymore, $30,000, live in Norfolk and Portsmouth. You have to apply in person. You come in, you show proof of residency, you show proof of your income. We scan it, and we don't keep any of your documents, because we do not want to be someone who has everyone's personal information. We approve you on the spot. But the only way you can take advantage of it is that you have to have an Easy Pass transponder. So the way we set it up, we were in MacArthur Mall the last 2 weekends. When we come out, we have someone who will tell you about the toll relief program, and then we have someone who can sign you up on the spot. And that's been working very well. And for the 2,094 residents who are part of the program now, we sent them a postcard saying that they needed to come in and re-register. For those that we denied last year, we're sending them a postcard asking them to reapply in case their situation improved or changed or something. So this is to me, this is a good program. It's not going to solve all the world's problems, but it does help a little. So are there any questions about toll relief?
Any questions? Yes, sir.
How about tolls in general, while we're on the subject? Peak time tolls. I caught just a little bit of that program that's in effect in Northern Virginia. Are there any plans, hopefully?
Okay, let me just say this.
Bring it here.
It's here.
The reason I didn't make it to your last workshop meeting is because I was in Fairfax on the 66 exam. For 6 minutes, if you were going to go the entire length of that road, which is about 9 miles, it would have cost $40.
I told you.
6 minutes. Out of about 14,000 cars that went through, 28 people paid $40. And they paid $40 because they chose to pay $40. Because before you get in, and when I go through 64 Express, you'll see there are signs everywhere telling you what the toll is going to be. But you know, it's a different animal in Northern Virginia. So they're sort of used to paying a lot of tolls, but not $40. I think it was $36 one day for 6 minutes. But right now they have averaged out, and they're in the single digits. Now, as for tolls here in Hampton Roads, unfortunately, we have no control over the tolls for downtown Midtown Tunnel because that's a contractual obligation. The South Norfolk Jordan Bridge is a privately owned. But I will say, there will be hot lanes coming to Hampton Roads, and I guess that's a good segue for me to get into my real presentation. Okay, where do I point this? I'm technically challenged.
Is it not clicking?
Is it that one?
I'll do it for you.
Okay. I thought I had skills. Okay. HOV lanes are being converted to voluntary express lanes. Now, I don't know how you all feel about HOV lanes here, but every time I come down and I'm a single occupant and I'm riding in the congested general purpose lanes, I have started to count the cars who are in the HOV lanes. And I especially count the cars who are in HOV on this divided highway. Because many times I have been sitting in traffic, and I will give this example. I was trying to get down here to a reception that started at 7 o'clock. At 5:30, I got out of the tunnel. I got to the reception at 5 after 7. And that was because it was in congestion, it was an accident, I was in the general purpose, but because I did not have the capability of getting into the HOV or the hot lanes, it took me that long. So this is all about choice. Express lanes will move more people. We're trying to move more people, not cars. It is people that we're trying to move. It alleviates congestion, it provides a more reliable trip with travel choices, and you have to maintain a speed of 45 miles per hour. Next slide. It is 8.4 miles of existing reversible lanes. It's between I-564 and I-264-64. The hours have changed. They're 5 to 9 o'clock a.m. Eastbound 2 to 6. Lanes are free outside of the express lanes. So what this is saying is that if you choose not to pay a toll, you can still stay in the general purpose lanes. Next slide. But if you decide that you want to be in the hot lanes, then you will have to pay a toll. But if you are HOV2 and you're going on the express lanes, you need a different type of transponder. And it's a flex transponder, and I'm gonna pass it around like gadgets. And you flip it to HOV. So that's if you have 2 or more people in your car. You switch it to HOV. This allows you to drive free. The only people who are going to be paying a toll on this new express road will be people like me who have a normal transponder, travel alone most of the time, and I make a choice to pay an additional amount. But right now it's HOV only, so only HOV people can get on if you got 2 or more people in your car. But with this, I will be able to ride on the express lanes and pay a toll. But that's because I choose to do that. It is all about choice. And I'll pass that around. And as I've said, travelers with 2 or more occupants in a vehicle travel free. You slide it to HOV on. Driving single, you have to pay the toll. And a standard Easy Pass transponder works for just regular toll use. You only need the transponder, the flex transponder, if you plan to do HOV and you want to go through the facility free. But I will also remind you, there's some folks, really smart, sharp people out there who think they will be able to turn it to HOV and keep riding. There will be enforcement out there. We will have state police out there the way we have them out there now looking at HOV too. But I will tell you this. There is technology out there that will be coming soon that when you go through the what do you call the little gate? Gantry. When you go through the gantry, the state trooper will be able to tell by your transponder if it's in HOV mode, and you'll also be able to tell if it's more than one person in the car. Now that's just coming down the road. Next slide, please. This tells you where you can get your Easy Pass. It can be opened and replenished with cash, check, debit cards, credit cards, reload cards. Are you familiar with a reload card? There are a lot of people who do not have a checking account or credit card, or they don't want to tie their Easy Pass to their credit card or checking account. You can buy an Easy Pass reload card, put as much money up there as you want, and attach it to your Easy Pass account, and it will act just like a regular credit card. But these are the places where you can get your Easy Pass. Customer Service Center, 1701 Church Street, Portsmouth 4010 Victory Boulevard. You can get it online, or you can call and make your commitment there. Now, if you get a transponder, HOV transponder, and you do not, we call flex transponders, if you get a flex and you do not use it in HOV mode at least one time in 6 months, we will send you a letter and ask you to either switch it out to get the regular transponder or pay an additional $10. Because we use these flex transponders just for the HOV use. And they do cost a little bit more money than the regular one. And you do not buy the transponder. The $35 that you use goes directly to tolls. And if you go to an Easy Pass on the Go retailer, it will come in a little package like this. Once you get it, there's $15 on it already. You go online and you register, and then you get your additional $20 for a total of $35. If you have a regular transponder and you need a flex transponder, Easy Pass on the Go retailer cannot help you. You would have to go to one of the customer service stores and they can switch it out for you free of charge. Or if you go online or phone, they will switch it out for you. They will send you the new transponder, and they will send you an envelope, a prepaid envelope, for you to send back your old transponder. Next slide. Okay, how does dynamic tolling work? We will have overhead electronic signs. As I was saying earlier, there will be signs everywhere to let you know what's going on. There will be 2 pricing signs displayed before the drivers commit. Then there will be a regulatory displaying operating hours and Easy Pass requirements. 1 mile before entrance is your first sign. Then you get 1 3/4 mile before entrance. So we try to give you a little headway so you can make an informed choice. Next slide. 1/2 mile before entrance, and then prior to entrance you have your final sign. So you get a couple of bites at the apple to make a decision about whether you want to make this choice to pay a toll. Now, I don't know how most folks look at this, but when I come out of the general purpose lanes and I'm willing to pay to ride on the express lanes, that frees up a space for someone else. And that's what it's all about, moving more people efficiently and quickly. Next one. It's expected that 17% of vehicles will shift, and the tolls collected will be invested in the I-64 corridor. So we're not doing this for a moneymaker. We won't make that much money, but what we do make will stay on the I-64 corridor. And Paula, did I leave out anything?
Our website with any more questions, expresslanes.org.
Now I know you got questions. I'm ready. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do have one in regards to the Easy Pass Flex transponder. What about if the Easy Pass is purchased from out of state? Is that applicable in all states now?
Easy Pass is, you can use an Easy Pass transponder in 16 states. on the East Coast. But the Flex transponder is unique to the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Okay.
Yes. If you want to use HOV, if you want to ride free on HOV, then you would have to have the Flex.
Okay.
And we prefer that you have a Virginia Easy Pass transponder, because if something happens, battery dies or something happens, you have to go to another state. If there are some things going on here in Virginia, when we send out a blast email, you would not get that email. And I know a few years ago people did go to other states because there was a maintenance fee or service charge. There's nothing now. Come on, I'm ready for some hard questions.
What will be the plan B if it doesn't achieve the 17%? Let's say it's only about 5% or less, which obviously wouldn't relieve any congestion. So what's plan B?
Well, with our track record, what we've seen happening on other tolling roads, it's going to beat the 17%. You'd be surprised at the number of people out there like me who are willing to pay. Now, we did like 3 or 4 focus groups. We did 2 strictly military, because this will have an impact on the military. And when we first started talking to them, the first thing they said is, you're targeting us. And then after we walked them through it, then they realized, hey, we may not use it in the morning, but we may use it in the afternoon, because in the morning when they're going to get stuck at the gate on 564. But in the afternoon, if they're trying to get home to see a child play soccer, fix dinner, go out with their husband, whatever, they may take it in the afternoon. You know, express lanes is not something you use every day. You use it when you need it. So you know that 17% may sway one day. Now, in Northern Virginia, which I have become a little bit too familiar with, Mondays and Fridays are light traffic days. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are their heavy days. So, you know, everybody's not going to use that. I'm not going to use it if I'm just coming out here to go to a meeting and I know I've got plenty of time, I probably won't use it. But if I'm in a hurry and I need to get somewhere, I'm willing to pay. And that's why we say it is a choice. And that's why we will keep general purpose lanes. But, you know, today we had a meeting on the HRBT, Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. We will be building a new Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. There will be a new tube connecting the peninsula and the south side. We're going to do a groundbreaking on January 4th for the high-rise bridge. And the high-rise bridge will have a HOV hot lane component. But I would venture to say that by the time the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel comes on board, maybe 2024, when that comes on board, your HOV lanes will convert probably to hot lanes. But you will still have general purpose lanes. And it will always be a choice.
Lisa.
Question on the toll relief. When they created this system and they came up with this $30,000 threshold.
How did we do that?
Yes, and
Well, I'm glad you asked, because we did not come up with this in Richmond. There was a steering committee where I had the Portsmouth Social Services Director and one of her staff members. I had the Norfolk Social Services Director and one of their staff members. I had someone from TCC, Centera, the business group that you guys have here. We had a cross section of people. We had the NAACP, we had the Urban League, we had the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So there was a consortium, a group of people, and we sat down and we tried to come up with something that would be meaningful. If we moved it up to 40,000, more people could come in, but they would get, the amount of money, the relief they would get would not be meaningful. We wanted to give meaningful relief. And in working with social services, they determined that $30,000 was a fair amount. Now, we met in November to go over our criteria before we rolled it out, and we had Portsmouth Social Services and Norfolk Social Services, and they agreed that we should keep it at this $30,000. But you know, we will evaluate it. But the higher we go up, the actual relief will go down because we only have like $500,000 to work with a year. And we want it to be meaningful, you know, to give somebody 25 cents, 50 cents, but you know, $1, that's a little, that's a little better. Would love to give more, but that's what we have.
And that funding for that came
From ERC.
5,000 from
500,000.
That came from ERC, yes.
Mayor, the representatives of which Mrs. Johnson speak of were appointed by our past council, and it's Mrs. Littlehill and Mrs. Hogue as representatives from the origin of this idea. So
And they were very, very
good.
helpful.
They attend the meetings.
Oh, no, they attended all the meetings, and they attended the meeting we had in November before we rolled it out again.
Just curious, on the hot lane, you mentioned the hot lane tolls will go towards improvements to 64.
I-64 corridor.
Right. How was that determination made versus it going to help to abate some of the toll here in this area?
I would say HR TAC and HR TPO, but we cannot use state funds and state revenues to abate tolls. We can't do that. And even though the citizens are paying, they're paying it to the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we have to maintain the roads here in this area.
Okay.
And I hope you all, I had a smooth ride down when you hit exit 247. Nice new pavement, 3 lanes. How many have driven the I-64 widening first phase?
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's nice. We've got, we're going to go all the way up to Richmond.
We need that.
And the Richmond district is already starting to meet us. So that's not going to happen, you know, while I'm around, but it's going to happen. Yes, sir.
Second question, has Virginia adopted a pay per trip part of as an easy pass option?
What's the pay per trip?
Where you don't have to pay a deposit, you just pay when you go through the tunnels.
How would you do that? With your
transponder, it only charges you as you go through. You don't have to pay a deposit.
No.
So Virginia is going to always require that minimum deposit.
Right now, sir, yes.
Who sets the amount of a toll? When I heard, and it was my daughter who lives in Arlington, that, you know, when she saw the $40 for that 6 mile.
6 minutes.
6 minutes. And then all the backup, she lives off of 50. And the day that it opened, or the day after, all the backup on 50, which she lives right off of there. Who sets a toll at $40?
The toll went to $40 because there were too many people on the toll lanes, and we could not guarantee a 45-mile-an-hour trip. That's how congestion pricing works. We are saying that if you pay this extra $40, then you should be guaranteed to go a minimum of 45 miles per hour.
So the relationship is between congestion and the amount of the toll. The more congestion, the higher the toll.
And the morning trip is the worst trip because there's so many roads who kind of end right there where you get on at 66. The morning trip, yeah. But we were monitoring 50 and 29 to see how it was going. We had people on the highway monitoring. There was an accident on 50, which I think was in the afternoon, which was one of the reasons why the toll went up. But it's kind of evened out. We put out a press release today letting everyone know how much they paid every day, well, the average price per day. And we put that out this afternoon. And the average price is less than what we had quoted it to be, because we were saying it was going to be $17. I think the average price, if you go round trip, is like $14.
Lisa.
Okay, what can we do as citizens here in this area to abate the tolls? I know we have exhausted all of our legislators, specifically Senator Lucas. They told her don't come back to the table for anymore. But what
I spent many times. I spent an hour with her on this toll. There's not a lot. I mean, if you look at the makeup of the legislature, there's not going to be any give, I don't feel, on tolls. The one thing that we can do is try to keep them as low as possible. Now, you guys will not see $40. Let me just say that. Because you don't have nearly the congestion, and it's a straight path.
Thanks.
And everyone is, I guess people from Portsmouth would probably be going straight. They'd be going through the tunnel. They probably won't even get to that part, to the hot lanes. But if they are in the hot lanes, it will not be that much. I can't tell you how much it's going to be, but I do know it will not be anywhere close to that.
Bill?
And when is it scheduled to start?
We're looking at January 2018. Now, we're doing a campaign right now to encourage people to get their flex transponders. And that is critical, because if you're going to be HOV, you need a flex transponder so you are not charged a toll. It wasn't that bad.
Other questions? Well, thank you again for coming in.
Oh, my pleasure, my
Have you here.
pleasure. This is coming home.
I don't want to keep your, thank you.
But you know, if you have additional questions, or you just drop me an email, call me. I know the mayor knows how to get in contact with me. I know the city manager knows how to get in contact with me. Just call me. I'd be more than glad to come back or work with you.
Well, on behalf of City Council, again, thank you for coming tonight. And on behalf of the city, thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you. I will say, the tolling part is the part that I truly sort of enjoy. Now, I don't know if you remember those 3 ladies that made the paper. I am proud to say that the one from Portsmouth is doing what she's supposed to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Have a good holiday.
Dr. Patton?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I will go over the City Manager's report for this evening. We have an adoption of an ordinance accepting a donation of $20,000 to the city from the Elizabeth River Project and appropriating said funds to the FY 2018 grant fund for use for the continued development of Paradise Creek Nature Park. We have the adoption of an ordinance authorizing the transfer of $480,000 within the Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Services category of the FY 2018 General Fund budget for the salary line item of the overtime line item for the purpose of paying overtime costs. We have an adoption of an ordinance appropriating $43,529,572 by classification to the FY 2018 operating budget for the Portsmouth Public Schools to implement third quarter of the annual budget. We have the adoption of an ordinance to amend and reordain Article 11 of Chapter 32 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, 2000 Street, 6, Streets, Sidewalks, and Local Improvements by changing the name of Article 11 to Wireless Facilities, creating Division 1 through 5, thereof amending and or moving existing sections of 32-301 through 32-310 and establishing new additional sections, all for the purpose of governing the placement of wireless facilities within the city's public ways. We have an adoption of a resolution accepting the FY 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the City of Portsmouth. And we have an adoption of a motion accepting the 2018 calendar of City Council meetings.
Thank you. I think it would be appropriate to ask the city attorney to brief us on the request for proposals tonight and what to expect in the format that we'll use.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. Tonight, as it relates to the franchise 4G and 5G small cell facility grant, you will have both a public hearing and bid opening first, as well as an ordinance that will address this matter. We will deal with the public hearing. It provides an opportunity should someone else decide to place a bid. I don't know that we have any additional bids tonight, but as you all will recall, this is a non-exclusive process, so we could certainly have this process go on a number of periods of time as folks make application. But we're required by law to have a bid opening, and then in the latter part of the meeting, you will also have the ordinance that adopts the agreement for this first franchise agreement. As you all know, we've had 4 presentations on these matters. This is the first of what I'm sure will be several more coming down the pike, as they say, in future meetings.
So the order will be to open the bids.
Certainly.
And the clerk will open the bids, and I'll ask you to read who the bid is from. And then we have a public hearing on that.
Certainly. And you will open and close that public hearing.
Right. And then we'll consider the adoption of a resolution that awards the franchise.
The first.
Okay.
Correct.
If we get multiple bids, then we will consider a motion. We'll still have a public hearing.
Certainly.
But then we'll have a motion to table the consideration until all the bids have been.
No, you can certainly move forward on the bid that has been in process. There's one that's already moved through the staff.
All right.
Should there be another produced that the staff has not reviewed, we would ask, and you will get a recommendation from staff to defer the second one and take that up at a later period of time.
Everybody okay with the procedure? Dr.
I'm just curious, why are we using this procedure for this particular RFP?
It is the requirements with regard to franchise agreements to have. It's only similar to, in terms of processes, to franchises, cable franchises. That's a different process. It's not what we would call the standard staff level procurement.
Okay. And
this
also,
is prescribed.
Certainly by state law.
And also, the 10-year term, is that a requirement?
Those were the state requirements, and that was part of the discussion when we talked to you all about some of the authorities being transferred from localities to actual state law requirements. Before, typically, we would have a franchise agreement and there was only an outer limit. With regard to the statutes governing 4G and 5G and these franchise agreements, they specifically stated that the franchise must be an initial term of 10 years, and they require the renewal terms also. So that's why they're set in that particular fashion.
And also the net neutrality issue, is that something we have any control over?
The net neutrality issue, and the council, I believe I sent you a bit of an update. The net neutrality issue is an issue for internet service providers. I'm looking to Mr. As I explained to you all in my explanation and my characterization, we were talking about the infrastructure or backbone when we talk about net neutrality. So if we equate that to a housing development, we're talking about here the pipes that we lay in the roadway and whatnot to produce the home in a particular development. When we talk about net neutrality, you're talking about end users and sellers, so that's more like the home builder, the person that's selling to the general public. Those issues and those discussions are on the end of the internet service provider, but we've alerted all the staff as to the questions that were asked. So Mr. Jones and his folks are aware of those concerns, and if there's an issue and an opportunity for council to chime in, we'll certainly make you aware of that.
So as far as I guess that's Verizon, Sprint, we don't have any control over that whole issue of net neutrality where we can put terms in place? That
does not come to you through this mechanism.
Okay.
And I don't want to speak for the whole breadth of possibilities, but that is not part of this particular process. But we may see, and you may have an opportunity, there may be a franchise service that comes in that's associated with one of the end users, and so you may have the opportunity to ask those questions of someone else. It just won't be part of this discussion in this particular fashion, because, for instance, of course, there are entities related to Verizon and whatnot that may come forward in the future. You may have the opportunity to chime in and ask those questions at that point in time.
So is there any way council can be updated as to what our role could be with making sure that citizens aren't getting different service levels and having to pay more? Is there any way we can use our leverage to make sure that there's no...
I will get with Mr. Daniel Jones, the CIO. I do think there is, well, we need to at least investigate with the broadband coming into the city and how those backbones are being used and integrated in terms of city functions, if there's an opportunity there. But I will get with him because he follows the end user piece in much more detail than I do, because that's, of course, federal law, and that's not what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But I'll get with him and find out what those opportunities might be.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, because I don't know if council or citizens are abreast of what's happening with this whole internet access. If the FCC changes the current regulations, there could be some access cost issues for citizens that may catch them by surprise, and also may limit some access because they can't afford to pay. Presently, that's not allowed, but there's a significant conversation about allowing them to charge different rates based on services they're accessing.
Is council in agreement that maybe we ask the city manager to give us a briefing on this very matter as it relates to the FCC current regs and what's being considered to be promulgated? Is that?
Yeah.
And net neutrality also.
Right.
Yes.
And do that in January?
We shall do that in January. And on the same note, the CIO and myself met the Waterview Civic League on December 4th, and we went to meet with them because over 400 citizens in our city are having grave but different issues as it pertains to either their internet, their telephone, or something with Cox. Cox had 6 of their top representatives, even a person out of Atlanta, to meet with about 30 people. And in turn, we as the city have set up an access where our citizens who were having grave difficulty trying to get through a 1-800 number, call, drop, or the answer would take forever, that now through us setting up where there's just a little link on our internet or our website where they can fill out. They have assigned a person from Cox to work along with Mr. Jones, and their Civic League president is kind of the point of contact for them to try to alleviate our citizens' issues. But during that meeting, net neutrality came up, so we will prepare in January to give you all a detail on that, because that is an issue.
Yeah, if it's any way, I don't know, if there's any way we can use our leverage to keep citizens from incurring those type of costs, it should be investigated.
And make that part of your presentation, too.
The cable.
And I
Yes.
think that leverage would come with our congressional delegation.
Also.
Okay. Right, I have 2 more brief
Okay.
things. Just calling to council's attention the awarding of 2 contracts. We have the intent to award the recycling contract, that the intent to award has been issued to Recycling and Disposal Solutions Incorporated, RDS, for the annual recycling services for the city of Portsmouth. I anticipate the signing of the contract on Friday, December 15th, 2017, with the contract start date of December 18th, 2017. The second is the Poverty Task Force consultant, Thomas A. Miller and Associates of Indianapolis, Indiana, has been awarded the contract for for facilitating the various components of the Poverty Task Force study. We're anticipating our first meeting with the consultants in early January. We're continuing to work with and Old Dominion University and Norfolk State University as partners of this endeavor as we move forward. Thirdly, I'd like to call to your attention that the magistrate has moved into the new office, which is over in the former juvenile domestic court building, of which we have worked on for, how long did we work on it, Mr.? At least 8 to 9 months. And this morning, the police department had their first roll call in their new roll call location over in that building.
Did I understand you said the recycle went back to RDS?
Yes, it did. And if any council persons want to tour either of those new locations, just let us know, and we'll make arrangements for you to go over and tour. But the police are very excited, and as you know, they were down in the basement ever since whatever. And the magistrate office indicated that they, and this was when I first came to town, thought that they were going to be in the new courthouse, and that didn't happen. So we had to find a place for them, and it's very nice.
Getting back to the agenda, the two public hearings that are planning related, this is first reading.
Yes.
They'll come back in January, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And, yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a follow-up. On the RDS contract, the scale that's out at the dump site,
Of the Crane Island landfill.
out at Craney Island, right. That scale, has that been installed?
It is, I will give you an update, but if it's not finished, it should be close to. I'll give you an update on that.
Because is that language still in the contract where they get to dump so much into the
I
landfill?
can't answer that. I will definitely
Oh, okay.
get back with you and let you know through
Okay.
a report back to council through email.
Okay.
All right. Other questions? This brings us to City Council liaison reports, and I'll start with Bill.
The Personnel Committee met Monday to review board and commission applications. The Vice Mayor will go over those in a closed session.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Planning Commission met and had several items. UP 1711, the Brighton Prentice Park, that was passed. All of those things will come to us. They had 2115 High Street, a child and daycare facility that's right there at the end of the MLK connector that was approved by the commissioners. UP 1713 was the 150-foot monopole telecommunications tower. That was approved with some controversy, 3-2. So that will come to us. The Westbury community was out in great force for that meeting. We were here until 4:30 with all of the speakers that came up and spoke about that, but that will come to us and we'll have to make that decision as well. The other one was at 3910 Victory Boulevard, another telecommunications tower, and that was approved 5-0. And then the last one was the former William T. Hall Convalescent Center out in Truxton, North Truxton. Their community was out in great numbers as well, and that was denied for them to build townhomes in that community as well. With the PRHA commission meeting, not much to report, but there is the discussion about the project that we all were made aware of at County and Effingham. So there's still discussion on that as well.
Well, Councilman Moody gave my personnel report, and Councilwoman Burke gave my Planning Commission report. So I'll talk to you in closed session. Thank you.
No reports tonight.
No report.
Last week, as you may know, the Virginia Port Authority is appointed by the members of the Virginia Port Authority is appointed by the governor. The state code specifies the qualifications. Several of the positions are geographically designated. For example, there is a representative to represent Chesapeake and Portsmouth, one for Norfolk, Virginia Beach. Other positions are qualified by experience, somebody that may have a finance background, and then there's an at-large seat. Well, last week, the city manager, the city attorney, the director of economic development, and I met with the representative that represents Chesapeake Portsmouth, and that's Mr. Blair Winbush. He is a retired, very senior Norfolk Southern executive. He was head of their legal department and head of their real estate. And he has served on many boards in Hampton Roads, nonprofits, much like the Virginia Symphony. We had a good conversation. We expressed to him some of our concerns, primarily the impact of trucks on our streets and highways, and the fact that the General Assembly has not, they established a formula for payment back to local governments that have a port facility. And at the time that was established, the local government supported that formula, but the General Assembly has not funded that. And of course, he can't do anything about that, but we made it clear that that's a concern of ours. A very good meeting, and I would invite the city manager and city attorney to embellish in any way.
I thought it was a good meeting, Mayor and members of council, and Sherry Neal, our legislative.
She was there.
She was there, and she was very much able to share background information on the pilot fees and how over the years we constantly put it forward, and other municipalities in the region that are could be impacted if in fact the state would fund it to what it is supposed to be funded. I thought it was good when Mr. Winbush said that no one had ever reached out to him to bring him into Portsmouth, although he represents both of us. And Chesapeake, it appears, hadn't reached out to him because they don't have the port there, but they're still a part of the Chesapeake Portsmouth representative. But he thanked us, and we indicated that we would continue to stay in touch and communicate our concerns to him as he sits on that board representing us.
On a more routine basis and a more frequent basis,
yes,
too. The second item is the Hampton Roads Transportation Organization, that is commonly referred to as TPO, at its annual meeting elected me as vice chair. But that's not what I'm reporting.
Congratulations.
Pardon me?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. A committee of the TPO looked at the connector, or had a meeting looking at the connector between the Virginia International Gateway and the proposed eastward expansion of Craney Island. And at that meeting was the TPO and his staff and all the parties that had an interest, and that is the Navy, because of the Navy fuel depot that's in Portsmouth, the Coast Guard because of their Coast Guard base in Portsmouth, the Port, of course, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the City of Portsmouth. And we put our concerns on the table. The Navy is concerned about security. They want to make sure that whatever goes there does not endanger, from a national security perspective, the fuel operation. In fact, they have figured it out that you have to have so much distance between, if it's rail and the Navy depot, assuming that a rail car could carry X amount of explosives, then it's got to be that far apart. We put our concern out about the landfill, that this landfill is important to Portsmouth. I think all in all, it was a good meeting. Again, the city manager was there. I was there as, and wearing 2 hats, TPO plus the city. The city attorney was there, the director of engineering and the director of planning. And it's a good first start.
Right, very good.
Okay.
Closed session.
With that, we have a need to go into closed session. We have 2 items again tonight, boards and commission, and then a discussion about Afton Green. So again, as we did last night, let's consider 2 motions because I assume that Councilman Moody is going to recuse himself for the Afton Green. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, and that's really not that I have any interest in that property. It's more just an appearance.
Yes, sir.
I don't even want the appearance of any conflict.
And we understand. So if we could have a motion to go into
Second one
close.
first.
Second one first.
I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A.1 for the purpose of discussing and considering prospective candidates for and appointees to boards and commissions.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion that's been made and duly seconded. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Cherry?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mayor Rowe?
Yes, and we're in closed session. I'll ask anybody that's not involved in this meeting, please leave.